Okay, okay then.
Okay.
Let's start with your approach to object recognition then. Can you explain it?
Yeah, sure. Not just object recognition.
No,
Okay.
let's be
So I know
specific.
that you
Object
tried reading it
recognition.
and then, it gets a bit annoying after a object recognition.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm talking about, I'll start from the concept of general intelligence and then I can later on explain how it can recognize objects or it can navigate or learn to communicate or things like that, right?
Okay.
Is that okay? Like so uh so first of all, I'll start with what the objective function is, right? For general intelligence, what I think it is. So the way, I mean, that should be the proper starting point, I think, for any AGI model. So so how I go about it is intelligence is what intelligence does. So if you want to know, if you're going to create an AGI, you should know what it does. So let's just see what intelligence has done, right? So for that, imagine a place without intelligence, like the background that you have a beach. It's just sand and water, right? So you can imagine a place like that, or an empty space where there is no intelligence. And you can imagine a place with a little bit of life and intelligence, like plants and basic amoeba and bacteria and whatnot. And then you can add a little bit more intelligence to it, like reptiles and monkeys and animals and things like that. So what is the difference then? And then the fourth, you can add advanced intelligence like humans, and we have like cities and bombs and buildings and music and movies and whatnot. So what is the difference between a place without intelligence and a place with intelligence? So that is the question, right? So how would you describe what the difference is? Like, I'm asking you a question. So what do you reckon is the difference between a place without intelligence and a place with intelligence?
Okay. I read some starting points in your paper, so I I understand what you are talking about. You are
Right.
saying
Okay.
that it's creation of new objects and so on.
Correct. So
Okay.
what are your thoughts on this right now at this particular moment? I say that the objective function of intelligence is to create more physical stuff, like physical sounds, colors, activities, patterns, objects, also concepts that leads to physical activities, like if you come up with an inspiring story, it is going to inspire a lot of people to act in a certain way. So eventually it ends up creating a physical activity, even if it's a just an idea or a concept or a non-physical or a virtual thing. It is going to inspire people to do physical things, right? So all of this, ultimately it is about creating physical novelty. And it's not just novelty, or it's not just complexity. I've also explained that a little bit further down the blog. But so this is the starting point for me. It is about creation of new objects. That is what intelligence is supposed to do. Is there anything that you disagree with here at this point?
Well, I want to first of all, is this the underlying ability of intelligence or underlying characteristic of intelligence? Creation of
Yeah,
something.
the object underlying, yeah, objective of intelligence,
But
the ultimate objective of intelligence.
okay, but what is the
Because if you want to
mechanism?
create an AGI system, you have to start with what is the
Okay,
objective, right? So
uh,
I'm trying to get to the objective of
let's
intelligence.
agree that it may be objective or it may be like byproduct or something. But what's the mechanism? How does intelligence
Yeah, we'll get to the
work?
mechanism a little bit. Yeah, the mechanism I will get to it in the next part. But if we have an agreement that the objective of intelligence is higher order novelty, it's not just novelty. Because if I say intelligence has to create new objects, uh, and intelligence has to create novelty, it is not 100% correct. Because in your background you have beach waves, right? Those beach waves are 100% novel all the time. You cannot see a new pattern repeat. I mean, you cannot see the same pattern repeat at all in those beach waves, like going down to the tiniest of atoms and arrangements and all that. But that doesn't mean that an intelligent process is creating, right? A basic process is also creating novelty over there. So what I mean by higher level novelty is you have to take a little bit of time to understand what I'm proposing. So this also addresses the mechanism. So the mechanism I propose is, it's a neural network, right? So I'll try to propose an architecture, see if you can visualize it. Okay, so it's just a whole bunch of neuron, a bunch of neural assembly, and you have the Heb rule as the local rule of interaction between the nodes. Okay, that's it. So what happens is, according to Heb rule, like if one neuron or a group of presynaptic neurons repeatedly help in firing a post neuron, the connection between those neurons becomes stronger. So that's the basic Heb rule, correct? So let's just say this is the only rule that is.
Wait a minute. So a single neuron, what it stands for? What signal it receives?
Yeah, it receives activation from a presynaptic neuron, and if the activation, it's just linear activation, right? Just like
but
it's not a sinusoidal. It doesn't have any function
we
at all.
have a
It's just a
real
linear.
world signals, right? So I see pictures,
Yeah, correct.
I
It's
hear
just pulses.
sounds, I register touches, smells, taste, etc. So
Yeah. So it can
a
be
single
any input.
neuron, what signal does it correspond to?
No, that's what, in the input you can have any signal. Let's just assume that it's getting an image from camera. Okay, that's it.
Okay, and one neuron
Okay, only it
is a
receives.
pixel or what?
Yeah, you take the pixel image and then you can convert it into some sort of normalize it between 0 to 1 or whatever, and then you feed it. You create a linear string of information based on whatever you get, that the pixel information, and then you feed it to the neurons, input level neurons.
So are we talking about zeros and ones?
Yeah, zeros and ones. Between zeros and ones, it's a normalized value between 0 to 1. You take some sort of an image and normalize the values, and then let's just say there is like 1,000 neurons as input
And
neurons for this
the
neural
same
network.
for taste, colors,
No,
smells,
don't worry
touches.
about taste or color now.
Okay.
Yeah, the same. It's actually the same, but don't worry about it. Let's just consider a very simple scenario here. It's a
Okay.
simple neuron, only one input from camera. It's a very low resolution camera, pixel value black and white maybe, and
Okay.
then you convert it into a string of 1,000 bits, and then you input it to the 1,000 neurons, input neurons, and in this network has like 100,000 neurons, let's say. And
Okay.
output neuron, there is only one output neuron. Okay, so the connection is all random. Let's just say that every neuron is connected to 20 other neurons. It's not really a layered architecture. It's like a blob, like the brain. Its connections are in a very different way. It's not layered connections,
Okay.
but it's just that once neuron output is connected to 20 other neurons. Just
Okay.
like in the brain. In the brain, it's like one neuron is connected to 20,000 other neurons. But here, let's just say it's connected to 20 other neurons. Okay. And the only thing here is the Heb rule. So initially, in the 1,000 input neurons, let's just say that you have some values coming in, and it is going to, and then you have obviously connection weights between the input neurons and the next set of neurons, right? All the input neurons are connected to 20 other neurons, correct? So you take, let's just say, input neuron number 1 gets an activation of 0.5. So what it will do is it will divide the 0.5 by 20, and then it will send it to the other 20 neurons it is connected to, a little. So a little activation goes to the next neuron, the next step.
So are you saying activation signal or some share, small share of that activation signal? Because so are
Correct.
you sending
Let's just say
0.5 or 0.9?
you mean the threshold.
No, I mean, what signal do you send to the other neurons?
So it's just like an electrical circuit, right? So like I said, the input neuron gets an activation of 0.5, and then if the input neuron fires, that activation of 0.5 is divided equally by 20.
What's
So
the
it will come
point?
to like,
What's the point of this division?
no, because according to my model, you can't, because the 0.5 activation has to be distributed equally in those 20 different
Okay.
neurons, right? Because neuron 1 is connected to 20 other neurons.
Okay.
So the
Let's
activation from
proceed.
neuron 1, it has to be divided equally and sent to other. Yeah. So it sends a little bit to the next neuron, next set of neurons, right? And at every time step, little by little, it keeps on sending to the next neuron. So if you're seeing the same image again and again, at every time step, you are sending 0.5 divided by 20, 0.5 divided by 20 to each and every other neuron. And eventually, the activation accumulates in the next set of neurons, and then they start to fire.
Okay.
Because once it reaches the threshold, so those neurons will start to fire, correct?
Maybe.
So those neurons will start to fire, and they will be, yeah. So let's just say that you're starting with neuron number 1. Neuron number 1 is connected to neuron number 1001, 2021.
Okay.
So for for the first 30 time steps, the activation, or 21 time steps, the activation slowly just keeps on going to neuron 1001, 2021, and after a while, neuron in the 30th or the 25th time step, neuron 1001, it fires, neuron 1002 fires, and goes on. Because it won't be in 30 time steps, because you also have to multiply that with the connection weightage. So you have a connection weightage between neuron 1 and neuron 1001 to 1020, correct? So let's just say that the connection weightage is small initially, like 0.1 or something.
Okay.
So you have to divide 0.5 by 20 and then multiply that by the connection weight, which is 0.1. And that amount goes to neuron 1001 and 1002, 1003, 1020. So after like 200 time steps, the threshold value in neuron 1001 will be reached. So neuron 1001 fires. So what happens is when neuron 1001 fires, according to the local Hebb rule, the connection weightage between neuron 1 and neuron 1001 becomes higher. Initially, you start with 0.1. Now it becomes like 0.15 or something. It increases a little bit.
Okay.
So that's the Hebb rule. Neurons, if pre and post synaptic
Okay.
neurons repeatedly fire, the connection can, yeah.
Okay.
So if you keep doing this, right? So the activation keeps flowing from neuron 1 to 2001 to 2020, and then 2001 to 2020, and eventually 100,000 it reaches. Let's just say 100,000 is the output neuron.
Okay.
So after after like 1,000 or 10,000 time steps, the output neuron gets fired.
Okay.
And in the process, this pathway, 1 to 1001, 1001 to 2001, 2001 to 3001, this pathway gets stronger and stronger. When I mean it gets stronger and stronger, the connection weightage goes from 1.1 to 0.15 to 0.2 to 0.25. It increases eventually.
Okay.
So it keeps on increasing. So what happens is, if the same image comes again, it does not take 100,000 time steps to reach the output. It will reach the output within 1,000 time steps,
But
because
the problem
the
is
connection weightage
the
is not
problem
point.
is that all the images are unique, and you will not have the same
No, that's what I'm
image.
saying. No, assume that you are saying the same thing again. Assume that you are, it's
Again,
a thought experiment. So assume that you are inputting this.
you do not see the same
No, this is
person
the scenario.
image even. I see your face moving. So your face is not the same picture to me,
Correct, it's moving.
but you are saying that it's about
I
pixels, and
understand it, but
pixels
it's
are
99.
all different. Combinations are all different. So I'm asking, how do you
No, that,
generalize?
that I understand.
Okay, I understand the Hebb rule, the
No, that's right.
neural
I understand
networks.
that. I understand that.
Okay, so tell me, what is different in your approach from general information about neural networks? Because neural networks have been shown that they do not achieve general intelligence. So what's different in your
Correct. So that's what.
approach?
So what I'm trying to say here is, so this neural network that I propose, right? So there is no objective function. There is no feedback. There is no error back propagation.
Okay.
There is no write back function like a reservoir computing or anything. But even without this, the thing that I'm describing to you, it will give out an interesting behavior. So that is
Okay.
that is what I'm saying. So the
Is
interesting
it
behavior is,
is
if you
it
keep
what you expect, or is it what you already show that it happens? Do you have implementation?
yeah, that's what I
Do,
don't have the implementation, but that's what I'm
so
trying to
this is your speculation, right? So it should show
it
this
is
new behavior.
correct, but it's pretty fairly obvious, just like saying 2 plus 2 is 4. That's what I'm trying to explain here.
Okay.
So
Then explain
it,
your approach to
right, so let's just say
generalization.
that,
Let's skip all these
no,
steps.
so so
Let's
what I'm saying
proceed
is,
to generalization. Okay, so how do you explain concepts,
yeah,
classes?
generalization.
Okay, go ahead.
No, this is not about, that's what, like okay, I will say that a little bit later. But what I'm trying to say here is that a normal Hebbian reservoir will automatically suspend output action when it sees a new image. But if it sees the same image again and again, it will quickly fire the output neuron. So if it fires the output neuron, it means it is causing a change in the environment, and it is disturbing the environment, and it is creating some sort of a novelty in the environment. Let's just say that you're in a room and all you see is the same white wall, and then there is a television or something. If you just simply stand there, you will see the same thing again and again. But like I said, if you see the same thing again and again, the activation flows to the output pretty quickly, and so you will go and do something. It's like you won't straight away go and
which
correctly.
output will I produce then?
That's what it will be random action. You will just randomly move any output, like your here I said only one output, right?
So
But imagine
what
that
is
this output is
intelligence
connected to
about
a
random
scroll.
actions? I do not
It's
produce
first
random
random.
actions.
Okay, correct. You do not produce, but let's just.
And
The
again,
intelligent action comes from associative learning. The first point I'm trying to make
I
is
take into
a
account a
normal
lot
heavy
of factors, and each time I may produce a different behavior in response to the same set of input parameters. That's how I
correct.
produce intelligent behavior. But you are saying that my output will be the same.
No, it wouldn't be the same, because see, the scenario that I described, I had only one
your
output.
Heb rule produces weights, and those weights will be the same. So signal will proceed automatically to output according to your model.
Heb rule.
Okay.
The weights keep on increasing.
Okay, but then the activation will proceed automatically to output. It is your model, not mine.
Correct. Yeah.
So the
correct. It will go to the output.
The behavior will be always the same. What is intelligent
because there is only one output?
What is okay? So what will make it different?
See, let's assume that there are many outputs. Okay, so here I said neuron number 100,000 is the only output, but let's just say there are multiple outputs. Like it is connected to several different motors in a hand, several different motors in a leg, several different motors in the camera, and all that, right? So what happens is, if you see the same thing again and again, it will go to the neuron number 100,000 again and again. But after a while, the excess amount of activation, like if it reaches the threshold of 1, it fires, right? But if the activation goes beyond like 1.5, it will flow to other neurons as well, other output neurons as well. So it's just like saying, like, first you enter a dark room, you don't see anything, so you take some random action, you move your hand, but you keep on doing that, that doesn't work, so you move your hand in a different way, right? So what I'm saying is, so from 100,000 it goes to some other neuron. So let's just say this is like 100,000 is a forward neuron, a forward motor.
How can it move to a different neuron? Tell me.
No, that's what I'm saying. Let's assume neuron number 100,000 corresponds to forward motion. Neuron number 100,001 corresponds to take a left. 100,002 corresponds to take a right.
How do you make difference?
No, that's what. So initially it goes to 100,000, right? and then you keep going forward, but you keep hitting the obstacle, nothing changes. You see the same thing again and again because you're not able to move because you're hitting an obstacle. So what happens is, like I said, the excess value from the threshold value, which is like if you're getting at a certain iteration, if neuron number 100,000 is getting an activation of 1.05, so one goes in firing that neuron, that 0.05 goes to the next one, output number 100,001, which is turned right. So it immediately doesn't fire, but after like a few iterations, even neuron number both 100,000 and 100,001, they both reach the threshold. So you do forward motion as well as a right motion. So the robo car or whatever that you're controlling, it moves a little bit right.
So it will be moving to the left and to the right simultaneously, or what?
Okay, so what happens is, it is still random. It is still, it is still trying different things randomly. Okay.
So what is
but
intelligent
the point here
about
is,
random actions?
as long as
I want to understand what is intelligent about random actions.
So what this neural network is doing so far is, it's not random. What it is doing is, if it sees the same image again and again, or the same input percepts again and again, it is firing the outputs. But when it sees a new image, if it sees a new image, the output does not go to neurons 100,000 or 101,000. It goes somewhere else. Because neuron 1 is not fired. Some neuron 50 or neuron 60 is fired. Okay. So when it sees a new image, that pathway is relatively new. So when it sees a new image, the system suspends action.
But it is always
right?
new.
Correct. It is always new, but eventually it becomes same. So let's say that you are seeing the beach waves, right?
How can
So
it
I
be
said
the same if it is always unique information? How do you generalize?
That's what I tell you. So you're seeing the beach images, right? So let's say at time is like 6:58 now. So 6:58 you see an image, and 6:59 or even the next second you see another image. So the images are 99.9% the same. Only few changes. It is unique, but it is 99.9% the same. So 99.9% of the same input neurons are getting fired, are getting the activation. So it is 99.9% chance it will go to the same pathway which is stronger. Only few pixels change from 1,000, right? So that is why even though it is unique every single moment, it is mostly the same. But if you see,
what about the situation when I see, for instance, green forest and then I see green car, so I will be reacting to the green forest and to the green car in the same way? Are you saying that?
No, but what do you think? Green forest is quite different from a green car, right? So a green forest is now going to activate a different set of pathways, right? So this pathway is kind of new. You're not thinking about the new pathway yet. If you keep on seeing the picture of a green car after like 10 seconds.
Okay, let's move away from neurons. Let's move to concepts. How do you define concepts?
No,
and how do you generalize?
No, see, this is not,
because I am interested in higher levels. Let's wait for your implementation, and then we will see what you will demonstrate with your application. But let's okay, explain to me what your approach to concepts, to symbols, to whatever we are thinking with. How do we think?
Now, like what I said is, like, so the objective function for us is to create novelty, higher order novelty. So that is what I was, explaining so
Okay,
far. So going to your
we
things
agreed
about
with that.
concepts and reasoning and
Yes.
stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So, so you agree that reasoning is happening in the brain, right? So I mean, I'm
Okay.
not sure what you mean. Explain a concept. Do you want me to explain how it is represented in the brain, or how new concepts are formed? Like, give me an example of what do you want to see, like the brain generate, like the
Okay.
neural network generate.
We have uh,
So you ask me how
we have objects in front of us.
yeah.
How do we recognize those objects?
It's a simple a bottle or something, right?
Okay.
You want to know how it recognizes,
Yes. So
right?
why do
It
you
is
recognize
it is
it as
really
a
just
bottle?
association.
Association with what?
Yeah, because see, I know what a bottle is already, correct?
Okay.
Because I have seen a bottle before, and someone told me, okay, hey, this is a bottle. So someone, show this to me and say, this is a
Okay.
bottle. Okay.
But I will
So I
tell
have
you that
associated that.
wine bottle may be quite different from that bottle that you showed. But
Correct.
you saw a lot of different bottles, and now you are saying that
Correct.
that is also a bottle.
Yeah,
So
because I
how do
know
you?
that the bottle,
Mhm.
because I know that anything that has a lid on it, and anything which has got a little bit of storage space for and you can put something inside it. It has an opening on the top,
Okay,
and then the lid
okay.
covers it, and then you
Uh,
have a stone hollow.
uh,
So all these
let's
things
stop
I
at that
associate.
moment. So how do you recognize storage space from pixels?
Now,
Or
because
uh,
I have something like that before, and I have seen that something can be put inside it. So I have seen that before. That's why I have
okay,
associated that kind
what's
of an
the
empty
difference
space.
from a box? Box also has storage space inside, but
Correct. But the box
you
does
are not
not.
saying it's bottle, it's box. So what's the
Correct.
difference?
Yeah, because I know that a box does not have a screw type lid or something like that. So, I will ask you this. So, why do you, how do you differentiate a box with a bottle?
Uh, that that may be I okay. Specific examples. I do not explain. I just introduce difference in properties. So shape is one of the properties
Correct. So you say properties, correct?
because
Correct. Yeah, one of the
but
property
but
based on the prop,
in
you say whether
fact
it's a box or a bottle.
in fact
And I do
there
the
are
same. I am associating certain properties with the bottle. I am associating certain properties with the
how,
box.
how do
So
you
when I
do
see
it?
something,
How do you do it? Explain to me.
No, that's what I have associated. So when I say a bottle, I say a bottle is long. It is generally long. It generally has a lid, and the lid is like a screw type or something, and it has got storage space, and it's kind of narrow. So that's what I call it a bottle. But if I see a box, I see like a flap kind of thing opening, and then I see it sealed in a different way, and so I don't. Uh, I mean, the opening of the box is a bit bigger. It's not small like in a bottle or narrow like in a bottle. So these properties I
But
associate with the box.
imagine a
So this is the
bottle.
association.
Imagine a bottle in a gift box. So they will be
Okay.
almost very close in shape. They
Okay.
can be even round boxes, so no problem with that. So again, what's the difference?
What do you mean?
Shape
What's the
will
difference?
be
How will you?
okay. You
So you're
will have
saying
a
that if I see a
cylinder
box, I don't know.
box. So what's the
Okay.
difference between cylinder box and the bottle?
Like I said, the opening is not narrow. The in the box, the opening is pretty wide.
Okay.
And whatever the
Okay.
difference is, whatever the difference, see, these are all properties, right? As you say, this is all
Yes,
my understanding of what a box, my understanding of what a bottle is.
but
I assign certain properties to
I
the bottle.
don't
I assign
I
certain
don't
properties.
want your understanding. I want understanding of your application, of your neural
That's what I'm
network.
saying. It's the properties.
How
I
will
associate
neural
certain
network,
properties.
how will it
So
arrive
that's what associate.
at the conclusion that it sees a bottle or it sees a
Okay.
box?
Right. So when I see the bottle, it is obviously sending activation in my brain, and it is going to stimulate different regions of thought within my brain, correct? The Hebbian, via the Hebbian method, because for every second it's firing 200 times. So for every second you get like 200 times 200 iterations of information processing. So with that, when I see bottle, that input percept
No.
is activated.
I am not talking about you. I'm talking about your model. So
That's
when
what the
it
neural network is, what
sees
I'm saying.
a bottle, so
Yeah,
how
my
will
neural network.
those neurons fire in a conclusion that it sees a bottle?
Yeah, okay, I'll tell you this neural network of mine. It's a Hebbian reservoir, right? So you show a picture of a bottle to it.
Okay.
So that is a certain combination of pixels, and it's going to fire or trigger a certain combination of input neurons, and those input neurons will eventually activate different pathways,
Okay.
and different pathways correspond
Imagine a
to the.
situation that someone comes up with a new design for a bottle. Will it recognize it as a bottle?
Mhm.
Will
Yeah,
it?
so the same thing. It's the
How?
shape. Those it sees the pixels will go to the input layer, and it will activate a bunch of pathways, and if one of those pathways corresponds to the property, okay, this one has got a small narrow opening but a long storage space, so it is highly all the properties and all the reasoning, right? If those pathways are activated in the neural network, it will eventually converge on the output that is going to make you say this is a bottle, because
Okay.
it is activating those pathways that correspond to the properties of the bottle. So you see a completely new
Okay.
bottle design which is really beautiful, well, but it
And
still has those properties of small, yeah.
okay. So
And if those properties are
How then do you store knowledge in your system, for instance, about actions?
Yeah, so the store knowledge about actions or different kinds of percepts or logic or whatever, right? So that's what I mean.
Okay.
It's like you must have heard that there is no single grandma cell, right? So there is no
Mhm.
single grandma neuron. So it's not, when you think about your grandma, it's not just one particular neuron getting highlighted, I mean
Okay.
activated. It keeps on
Yes.
changing. It's a combination of neurons that are getting activated when you see someone's face or someone's voice or someone's name if you read them, or some
Okay.
concept if you read. They all have different combination of neurons that are representing them, because we have
Okay.
like billions of neurons, right? And then there
Okay.
is so much different combinations of them. So when you think of a dog, certain set of neurons are getting associated. When you think about a poetry or something, or when you think about a joke, a different set of neurons are getting activated. So that is what representation is. So I mean that is how it is in the brain as well. There is you know there's no proper hard disk or anything. I mean, obviously everyone knows this, but it's really just a combination of neurons that are getting fired when you see something that represents that particular object, and that also keeps changing. Like if I like from the image of picture I saw in your Twitter, I have a certain face of you, now I have a different face of you. For you
Okay.
it's the
Okay.
same with me.
But
So the
again,
representation is flexible. Yeah.
how do you
So
store
what happens is,
knowledge in that system?
that's what it, storing knowledge means, if that combination of neurons are triggered by
Mhm.
some method,
Okay.
you are remembering that knowledge. That is what it is.
Uh,
There is no specific storage or anything. Let's just
okay.
say let's just say theory of relativity. You have a theory, right? It is not exactly stored in any format, but if certain sequence of neurons start if a certain combinations of neurons start firing in a certain sequence, it means that you are thinking about or visualizing about, or hearing mind voices about that theory in your mind.
Mhm.
So whatever triggers that set of combination, I can just look at a picture of Einstein and I'll start thinking about the theory of relativity. So it will trigger that
But
combination of
how
neurons in
how
that
will
particular
it
sequence.
how will it proceed in the system? How do you
Proceed.
establish those connections between different neurons?
Now, like I said, this is what happens through Hebb rule. So let's just say first you learn about.
So
Let, uh, uh,
just
let's
neural
go back to
network and
dog
Hebb
and bone
rule, and
experiment.
that's it. Okay, did I
Yeah,
understand you
yeah,
properly? Okay, so it should
correct.
be
Yeah,
pretty.
let's say dog and the bone.
It should be pretty simple to implement, right?
Yeah,
Okay, so let's agree that when you implement this, we will talk again, right? So that you can
that's what
demonstrate
everyone says. Yeah.
some results, because as I understand, there are a lot of experiments with neural networks, and still they don't show general intelligence. Why is that? And there are
No,
people
but,
who are smarter
no,
than
see,
us,
general intelligence
and
is,
who say that what happens inside neural networks is not generalization, it's just memorization. Memorization and generalization is a different processes. So We are interested in generalization. You are like frozen to me. Hello?